Hey, hello, I'm Stacey Dooley.
And I'm Ben Zand, and this is our new podcast, Untangled.
Yes, very exciting. So every week, basically, we sit down and try and untangle sort of the biggest headlines, and we're trying to make sense of what's going on in the world at the minute.
This week we'll be talking about one of the biggest stories of the moment, which is Prince Andrew giving up his royal titles and the latest claims from Virginia Giuffre in her posthumous book.
Yeah, we'll then be dissecting everyone's favourite AI bot, ChatGPT, specifically OpenAI's move to introduce erotica to the platform and the expansion of AI more widely into the online sex market. Totally lost on me because I've never used it.
And to round things off, we're going to be untangling the controversy around Maccabi Tel Aviv and Aston Villa's Europa League match and how that fits into the wider picture of the current ceasefire between Israel and Gaza that's been rumbling on over the last week or so. All right, but first off, how you doing?
Golden, busy, good, same as everyone else. What have you been up to?
Been traveling around a lot. I was in Costa Rica last week for a shoot, which was amazing. Costa Rica is great, but life's good.
Oh,
How did we meet then?
We met a long time ago. So obviously we were peers and we were both making documentaries in similar spaces. And then we met. I think you was working on a panorama because you're very highbrow, and I had come to your edit suite. You were putting the film together because I was going to Iraq with your director.
Because you're very highbrow.
Because
also.
I'm very highbrow.
You were the Stacey Dooley from the BBC, so I was like, oh my god, this is going to be so fun.
Sure.
Yeah, exactly. And he was like, I'm mates with Stacey Dooley. He doesn't even talk like that, but he was like, I'm mates with Stacey Dooley. And then he was like, she's going to come to the edit suite. And I was like, I don't even care. Who cares?
Who cares? Stacey Dooley.
You came with a dog. I think you had like flip-flops on or something. And I was like, God, she's so cool. She's wearing flip-flops on a work day. Like, that is outrageous. And you had like a little pug thing.
No,
Pugs in
it was
general
a
are
bulldog.
strange dogs because they have weird noses. What's the difference between a bulldog and a pug?
They're entirely different breeds, Ben.
Don't they have the same kind of nose vibe, like squashed faces?
I mean, not really.
Anyway, I'm not a dog guy.
No, clearly.
And then now you've moved to Liverpool.
That's right, honorary Scouser.
Exactly.
Probably more Scouse than you, to
You
be
actually
honest.
are probably more Scouse than me now.
Yeah.
Can you do a Scouse accent though?
Of course I can.
Salad.
Of course I can. All right, girl.
All right, lads.
You are, yeah.
Because your mum's actually Scouse.
Yes, exactly.
I feel like we've got like a lot of kind of like, we both are interested in the world. We're not really like kind of news reporters.
I'm definitely not.
But we're like
reporter.
Interested in people.
That should be a definite disclaimer at the start of this pod.
Yeah.
Neither of us are claiming to be news reporters in any way, shape,
but we
or
like
form.
to understand why people do things.
Totally.
I reckon that's it. And how would you describe the podcast?
I suppose like top line to arguably reasonably informed individuals who've made documentaries for a long, long time and like talking about things that are playing out in the current affairs space.
Mm-hmm. But I think it's, that's what is a little bit different, I guess. It's us trying to like get to the bottom of these stories, maybe from a different way in sometimes, trying to understand like the people at the heart of them. You know, we'll give you the headlines of the stories, but then probably take you on some crazy twists and turns along the way.
A little tangent. I love a tangent.
Exactly. And then you'll come away smarter.
I'm in. I've signed up. I'm raring to go.
Yeah. But anyway, we need to untangle our first topic.
Let's untangle. Should we sort the country out?
Let's do it. We're going to solve everything.
Yeah. Cool.
The topic we're starting off with is Prince Andrew. So he has been all over the news this last week, mainly initially because he came out with a statement saying that he was giving up his remaining titles. So let's do a little recap on the kind of Prince Andrew saga, of which there is a lot to go through. So he's, of course, King Charles' younger brother. King Charles has two brothers. He was once a Navy officer, war veteran. He was a full-time working royal, but it all began to crumble in 2011.
Yeah.
And this is when the kind of Epstein saga began.
Yeah.
It came to light when a photo of them were kind of walking together in Central Park came out, and that was after Epstein had been convicted of sex offences.
Wasn't it a couple of years after that?
It was.
Exactly.
Yeah. So in 2015, a woman called Virginia Giuffre accused him of 3 separate incidents of sexual abuse when she was 17 years old. And she claimed that all of these were facilitated by Jeffrey Epstein, which is something that Prince Andrew has always denied. The fallout since this accusation has been a huge talking point and something that he nor the royal family have ever been able to escape.
Yeah.
And then obviously comes the 2019 Newsnight interview. Things get to such a point that he decides, I'm going to defend myself publicly by doing an interview with Emily Maitlis on Newsnight. It goes absolutely horrifically wrong.
But he thought it went brilliantly.
So that interview was a huge PR disaster, met with major public backlash. Then in 2022, the palace strips him of his military titles and royal patronages. He steps back from public duties before he then settled with Virginia Giuffre out of court for an undisclosed sum, but that has been widely reported to be around £12 million, but accepts no guilt within that.
Yeah.
So fast forward to today, Prince Andrew's announced on Friday that he's going to voluntarily stop using the Duke of York and give up other honours. He's going to give up his membership of the Order of the Garter, which,
what does that
I'll be
mean?
honest, I literally don't have a clue what that is. So it's the oldest and most senior order of chivalry in Britain. And it's the thing about like the kind of the space around the royals. It's like there's so much of that world that's so confusing, so antiquated.
It's always been shrouded in secrecy. You know, it's like we're not privy to hardly any of it. Do you know what I mean? As just normal, regular civilians, we don't have the first idea of what their lives really look like, you know.
And that feels purposely so.
Of course.
You know, it's kind of so complicated.
Yeah.
And there's so much kind of legacy and history there, and, you know, all these kind of institutions that you just don't really, like, what does it even mean to be the Duke of York?
Sure.
You know, it's like all these kind of titles. So the big question now really, well, there's many questions. One of them is like, did he actually voluntarily do this? Was he pushed by the king to do this? The way that the actual statement was framed was really weird. Like, it was framed from the perspective of Prince Andrew as if he's just made this decision because he's such an honourable guy.
Yeah, this is the noble thing to do.
Exactly.
He doesn't want to get in the way.
He doesn't want to inconvenience the king
voluntary.
by being a kind of, you know, this coming into the news. And I think that, for me, is also strange, because if you're the royal family wanting to take control of the scenario, why do you then allow the statement to be written from the perspective of Prince Andrew? Why has this gone on for so long? It's
abhorrent. You know, you read the accounts of what these girls were put through, and you can't quite comprehend that somebody who, you know, it's such a privileged position to be in, and he's puts himself in this situation where it's just like, what on earth is going on? You're supposed to be a royal.
And it's made even worse by the fact that Virginia Giuffre's memoir, which is being released post her death, was out on Tuesday this week. It's got a kind of load of like horrific detail around their kind of interaction. It's got kind of new allegations that he got his kind of personal police service,
his bodyguards to try and dig up dirt on her.
To dig up dirt on her.
To discredit what she was saying.
So it's worth saying that these are just claims at the moment, and the Metropolitan Police have said that they're looking into those claims around the fact that Andrew asked the bodyguard to dig up information, dirt about Virginia Giuffre just hours before the kind of widely published photo of him and Epstein in 2011. According to the Mail on Sunday, Prince Andrew asked his police protection officer to investigate Giuffre and gave the officer a date of birth and a confidential social security number, which, if true, is also disturbing, because, you know, a social security number is something that someone else shouldn't really have of you. It's like a defining detail, a bit of DNA of your life. So even that is a bit weird.
And if this did all happen, I suppose, to completely discredit anything that she had to say.
Yeah, and again, it's just that sense around kind of how powerful people
I know.
operate, you know, and obviously these are alleged and he denies it, but it's that sense that, like, I couldn't just go to the Met Police and say, I want some dirt on Stacey Dooley, go and dig it up for me, because I don't have a personal protection officer who's a high-level Metropolitan Police officer. Ben. But it does give you a sense of, like, how powerful men operate in these positions.
But listen, it's a different world.
They can just do what they want, and there's, like, they have resources that we don't have.
Yeah.
What does the removal of titles mean? So he's taking a voluntary step. He's still Prince Andrew, so he will no longer be known as the Duke of York, nor will he have the KG title or the Knight of the Garter, but that's him voluntarily choosing not to use those. He hasn't actually been renounced, stripped of those things. And there's been cases in the past where he has still, even though he's not a kind of serving royal, he's still used that to his advantage. He's still going to be known as Prince Andrew.
He's still going to live in that mansion,
He's
I'm
still
sure.
going to live in a mansion
So
with
that mansion
30
he's living,
rooms.
that's it. He's living in this mansion at the minute. It's got 30 rooms. It's a luxurious mansion. I think he hasn't paid rent in over 20 years.
Well, he pays a peppercorn rent,
Yeah.
which is also known as nothing. Because I only actually came across the concept of peppercorn rent.
Whilst reading up for this?
No, when I was buying a house.
Oh.
Because it said something
Did
like...
you offer the...
I offered them a peppercorn, an actual peppercorn. And they said no. No, but one of the documents was like a peppercorn rent, like for the value of a peppercorn. And I was like, why would I give someone a peppercorn? But it turns out that a peppercorn rent basically just means like a nominal amount of money. It just is like a symbolic amount, a single peppercorn. And it basically signifies that the rent is just in name only, not actually for financial value, which broken all down, it means he's paying nothing.
And he hasn't for the last 20 years.
Exactly. And this is like a 30-bed estate mansion, and he's paying absolutely nada.
And he obviously lives there because his ex-wife, Sarah Ferguson, she still lives there, right?
Yeah, together.
Yeah, well, I'm sure there's enough space.
Don't question other people's relationships,
Listen.
do what you got to do. But I think that like the kind of lodge itself is part of the complicated reasons that they may not be able to fully get rid of him. He's got a lease there,
I think,
up until like 2070s.
2078.
2078. He's paid like £10 million restoring it. So he's got a legal right to be in this kind of house. There isn't currently the law for the king to strip him of those titles. That would have to go through Parliament. It would need cross-party support, which it kind of does, but it's just the government seem to want to kind of stay away from this. They've currently said that it's a matter for the palace, but it just stinks of
course it does.
Elite
and people feel furious, and understandably so. Do you know what I mean? It was like, I suppose maybe you could argue that there's a temptation to always side with the victims, survivors, but I just think when you hear the accounts of what these people were put through in those parties that he used to frequent, he used to hang around with Epstein, he was pally with Epstein. Virginia came out and said that she was instructed in no uncertain terms to service Prince Andrew.
I mean, he obviously vigorously denies all this.
He's a royal.
But even that kind of defense that he did in that 2019 Newsnight interview, it's recently come out that after that interview where he claimed he had no kind of further correspondence with Epstein, that he then sent him an email afterwards.
Well, these leaked emails have come out.
And saying and signing it off with, let's play together soon. And it's like, this is a convicted sex offender.
Correct.
To use that terminology in that space.
Correct.
So I think then the question does become like, why the hell is he still there? What's going on? Like, why are they keeping him around? The other thing I was looking at, because I was like, why is it so complicated? Like, what's so weird about this? And then I was like, what's it like for journalists looking into the royals? Because, this is effectively a public institution. It is a public institution. A lot of our money goes to this space. And then I was like, oh, hold on a minute. Like, you can't freedom of information request. Like an FOI is a thing that we can do as a journalist. If we want to get information on a police force, we can send an FOI, and there's a law around that.
You can't do that around the royal family.
You can't do that around the royals.
No.
Not only that, even when it comes to their money. So, for example, if I was to die, hopefully that doesn't happen anytime soon, and I have a will and I pass on my money to my children and they get some inheritance, that part of that then becomes public record. People can look into that. With the royal family, you cannot look at where the movement of money goes in most instances, which is outrageous. So they basically act as a kind of private family when they're a public institution.
Yeah.
So we've created this system as a society that completely allows them to do whatever the hell they want, and without much ability to really look into it. And it's fascinating because I was like, why? Do we allow that?
It's a crucial moment for the monarchy. I mean, that historian, A.N. Wilson, he's come out and said, perhaps the gravest crisis for the royal family since the abdication of Edward VIII in 1936, and how it responds could set the course for the years ahead.
Yeah, because one of the big problems they've got at the moment is that generational divide, which is that if you're older, you tend to be more of a monarchist and you kind of see the value in them. And if you're younger, you're kind of feeling increasingly detached from this thing, offended by a lot of these kind of actions. And the reality is old people will die, young people will become older, and their views will start to shape politics more and more. So they have a major need to appeal to younger audiences. And this type of thing is majorly problematic. in doing so.
I just want to sort of read this out because this is a section from Virginia's book. And these are her words, of course. She writes that Andrew considered it his birthright to have sex with her, saying the prince was friendly enough but still entitled. She also describes their encounter on Epstein's private island, writing, "It was not just the two of us this time. It was an orgy in which Epstein, Andy, and approximately 8 other young girls and I had sex together."
No, it's crazy. And that's what I mean. It's like how, obviously these are alleged, but there's a lot of aspects of the story that are extremely dirty and do make you look at the society we live in and think that's a joke. There's a counter argument to it, which is they're the royal family. They should be protected because they're a national institution.
But they
So
should
therefore
also
they should
behave
be.
there should be a set of standards that they should be happy to adhere to.
But then you could argue it's unsettling as a society that this institution that is part of our national identity is being looked at, so they need to be treated differently.
But I mean, you can the bare minimum you can do is not put yourself in compromising environments with sex offenders.
Don't be best mates with a sex offender.
I mean,
that seems like good. That's
yeah,
lesson number 1 of Untangled.
probably top of the list.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this, Ben. So essentially, I mean, did you see that clip of former Prime Minister Boris Johnson? He's basically being interviewed and he's talking to somebody about ChatGPT and OpenAI and whatever. Did you see it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't get it. Like,
can you give us an impression, please, for those who haven't heard it?
Yeah, so he's doing an interview with someone and he's talking completely normally in his posh voice.
Yeah.
And then randomly he just goes, "Do you like hair?"
What was that?
Like Cartman from like South Park or something. And then he's like, "Do you use ChatGPT?"
It was worse than that, actually. I think you're being sort of quite generous. It was like, it was sat on the sofa and he goes, "Do you..." I don't know what the accent
Maybe
was.
he's been living out the country and he's
Where?
like picked up like
Where?
Swedish kind of twang.
Do you know do you know it's like,
why do you reckon he's doing that? Like, that's what I don't get. Like, is he trying to be, is it like a kind of memeable moment? This isn't even the topic that we're meant to be talking about, but like, why the hell is Boris Johnson talking like that?
USP, isn't it? It's like his shtick is like, oh, he's got messy hair and he's so buffoonish and he's such a clown, and what's he like? Oh God, he's such a carry-on. And he sort of leans into that. But I don't really understand why he decided to just use that accent in that moment.
Yeah, but there is an important question at the heart
it.
of it, which is, do you use air?
I don't. So myself,
crazy.
I have never used and I've never used ChatGPT. I never have. And
you mean you haven't even opened the app?
No, and this blows people's minds.
Wow.
Like, if you said to me, I wouldn't even know how to use it. I can barely copy and paste an email.
So what do you do? Like, if you're searching something,
I just read
do you use Googly?
Yeah, just like read articles or, have conversations with people who are perfectly placed to offer an opinion. It's like, I don't want to get on my high horse about this, but I do feel like, there's such reliance on ChatGPT for like mundane tasks.
Well, give us the top line as to why we're talking about this.
So we're talking about this because essentially the CEO, Sam Altman, he has basically come out and said, look, we are going to be introducing erotica. So this is something that, we feel very sort of passionate about. We want to treat adult users, like adults. We understand there's this insatiable appetite for this kind of content. And then all this kind of usual promises that, assurances, we'll make sure that
we'll have protection.
Yeah, there's going to be protection in place, and people, that are perhaps a bit more fragile won't be bombarded with ads, X, Y, and Z. But it kind of poses the question, is this sort of perfectly reasonable and, people are entitled to consume what they crave? Or is it a slippery slope and actually we're just going to find ourselves in a situation where there's individuals, arguably predominantly men, who are sat in their houses, in their bedrooms for hours and hours and hours of the day, having a romantic relationship with a bot?
Yeah, I mean, what I always think is interesting with any of these big organizations is when they frame it around, we just want to treat adults like adults.
I know,
That's what
lol.
it is. We just
Exactly.
really care about
Yeah,
adults
yeah,
being
yeah,
treated as
yeah.
they should be treated. And it's nothing to do with the fact that if you give people pornographic content, they will pay you money for it and we will make more money as a consequence.
I mean, people use, AI, Chat GPT. Like, these stats are crazy. So as of 2025, Chat GPT, the estimation is that it has around 800 million weekly active users worldwide, and it's reported to handle over 2 billion queries per day globally.
I think it was one of the most used app, or the kind of fastest growing app, or had the most signups. Like it's
Ben,
basically
2
the adoption
billion
of it.
queries per
The
day.
adoption of it is absolutely insane.
And look, people use it for, a wide range of reasons. It can be, how can I be financially responsible? What should I invest in? People use it.
I use it all the time. Like
You do?
literally for
Like,
absolutely
for
everything.
what?
I'll be like, hey, I'm going on holiday and I want to know like what the best locations are, or it'll be like, summarize this for me. I mean, it's funny because I'm kind of torn between how useful it is and how much it's now wasting my time. Because, like, for example, if I was writing you an email, I'd literally probably put it through ChatGPT
Are
about
you
57
serious?
times. Yeah, it's like, hey Stacey, do you want to go for a coffee? And I'd be like,
But why don't you just
if
write
I write
that?
it like that, she might get offended that the coffee is actually going to be a stern conversation about.
Insane.
But so I think like maybe I've done too much ChatGPT, but I do think there's obviously a major amount of use for it. I think
Sure.
a lot of people are now using it for therapy, which is what I think is interesting about the erotica, because it's that sense that all of our emotional needs will be met by this bot that
isn't human.
It's not human. It's also kind of like it's a language learning model, so it's got all this data around how to interact with humans in a way that you might not be able to, because you might be dealing with something that day. So if I come to you and I'm like, I'm really struggling, and you're like, I haven't got time to talk about it, well, I can go to AI, and as well as it giving me therapeutic advice, it's also going to give me some erotica. So you can see how people fall down that hole of more and more time. So I think there's a benefit to it. And I know a lot of people who are saying they're getting kind of use from talking to it in a way they wouldn't usually. And maybe there's people who have intimacy issues who could be helped from it.
But isn't this going to exacerbate those issues? Do you know what I mean? And I suppose it sort of poses the question. It's like, we know that there are individuals now that are sat in their home talking to these bots for up to 10, 12, 14 hours a day. Is it a surprise that some people can't then leave the house and have a
normal conversation?
Kind of like a rational conversation with the opposite sex.
I also think the reality is most of these systems have been designed by men. Like, AI in general is super sycophantic and obedient. Like, if you talk to ChatGPT, everything you say to it, it'll go, brilliant, what a thing to,
so it's
what
really
a great question.
So it's complimentary.
Yeah, I mean, it's more than complimentary. It makes you think you're literally Albert Einstein with anything you've ever seen. It's like,
that's
wow,
fascinating.
What a question.
Like, it's hanging off your every word.
Exactly, Ben. That's brilliant. So like, you kind of then put that into like a kind of sexual setup where it's like, do this for me. And it's like, of course I'll do that for you. And it kind of creates this world in which like you think people just fulfill your needs. That's kind of how sexual relationships go.
So this could be detrimental really to human intimacy and genuine connection.
Yeah. I mean, I think the internet already is in many ways. And it's kind of like there's an extension from the world of porn and that kind of the isolated reality. I think I was talking to you about, I've just made a doc about gooners.
Yeah.
So gooners are guys who like, they create like a goon cave, and they like, I've explained goon caves too many people at this point, but it's basically like they put loads of screens in a room and then they kind of masturbate all day whilst watching.
How are you masturbating all day?
They do something called edging, so they get to the edge
and then don't
so they don't actually go. Yeah, but it's like, I mean, that is an example of like kind of just how isolated a lot of young men are getting. You know what I mean? Like, they're kind of, those relationships in the real world are so much harder to come by. People don't really know how to talk to each other in the way that they once did. And something like this, which is like, okay, not only can you get porn, but you can have full-on relationships, sexual relationships with an AI bot, is a little bit terrifying for that exact reason.
Hugely problematic. I mean, a report by ARK Invest, they forecast the AI companion market to grow to upwards of 70 billion and said AI could become a compelling substitute for human companionship and an antidote to loneliness worldwide. But then I mean, look, that's a separate
Yeah, do you think there's a
conversation,
benefit to it? Do you think there
suppose.
is a benefit
I mean, listen,
to the loneliness?
it's true that we've had this term, haven't we, more recently, like there's a sex recession, like globally, like people are having less and less sex. And there's a declining sort of, birth rate, and like particularly I think England and Wales, I think it's like historic lows. Do you know what I mean? I think they first started recording them in like 1938 or whatever, and actually this is the lowest it's been.
What right now is the lowest birth rate?
Yeah, so it's like, and places like Japan, they've been very vocal saying, people just aren't having sex in the same way that they used to, and we're not reproducing at the same rate. So people are lonely. And listen, the idea of somebody being lonely, it breaks my heart. I can't bear it. When you think of people in your life, my nan and granddad were together 100 years or whatever, and then, she died and he had 15, 20 years. And he was incredibly lonely, and that is incredibly heartbreaking. But I just think turning to bots,
yeah, that's the question. Like, obviously,
to fulfill
people having someone to talk to is beautiful,
need.
but I think that the other thing is, like, can we really trust kind of giving all of our emotional needs to an AI bot? Like, I was reading that Claude, which is another kind of, I think it's made by Anthropic. It's another kind of AI company. And it kind of came out recently that they did an experiment with the AI, and they found that when they threatened it with shutting it down, it resorted to blackmail. So it started trying to blackmail the engineers, and it was threatening them, saying that it was going to expose an affair that they had with their wife in order to try and protect itself. But it's like, it's this sense that, like, we're giving all of so much trust into these machines, and if you kind of take it to the next level of kind of intimacy, sex, love, etc., they have such control over us. And that's the other question, is like, where the hell are we going on this journey if we're handing over so much of ourselves to these things and we don't really understand them? They've got such a capacity to kind of
people will be sort of saying, how much further is this going to go? Like, that's certainly a question at the forefront of my mind. And you've got to think, like, Elon Musk has got that company, hasn't he, Grok? So that would be a direct rival to what OpenAI are suggesting. And I think, look, I'm not familiar with it, but my understanding is it's like they've got, like, is it sexy mode and like spicy mode? Have you heard of these?
No.
So there's like sexy mode. So this is chat and role play. So it has like a voice, like text mode. And it's labeled, 18 plus, and it allows erotic conversations and role-playing scenarios. And then it's got like companions, and that'll be, they're a bit sort of flirtatious, like romantic interactions. The spicy mode is image and video generation. So this means, you can sort of use sexualized imagery.
So you can already generate video.
Yeah, and you can generate deep fake style explicit content. So a clip of a celeb, dancing around.
Yeah, that's the thing that,
didn't
like,
Taylor Swift get caught up in this?
Yeah, I think that's the thing that kind of really freaks me out about it, in the sense of like where does it end in that sense? Like, if you can generate literally any video you want of any sexual setting, like, how do you stop child pornography? How do you put like people who you don't have consent to put in videos in these videos? And like, these companies will care to a degree because it'll, they don't want to get in trouble, but at the same time, this very focused as companies are on making a profit from these things. So kind of making it as accessible and as broad as it possibly can is kind of in their interests. I mean, how would you feel if you found out that, like, there's a deep fake AI
of me
video of you on the internet?
It depends, pre or post baby. I prefer they used my boobs before I had a kid. They're like empty crisp wrappers now, so I breastfed for a year, Ben. I don't think there'd be a real appetite to see that, to be quite honest. But it's kind of the age verification, and because we know that there's always going to be loopholes around that, and I just think, it's yet more content for young individuals, young men specifically, to just be bombarded with. But what can you do? Sex sells, it always has, and it will continue to do so. And listen, I don't judge people. I don't really consume porn, but I know there is, a desire for people to watch what makes them tick. And I do, agree that you have to treat adults, you have to allow people to do what works for them. But I just think like relationships, like erotic relationships, all of that with bots just feels pretty bleak to me. And I think there are so many ramifications that will be detrimental to society as a direct result of this.
Yeah, it's not the porn that I have an issue with necessarily.
No.
It's kind of as you're saying, which is just yet another place that men specifically can kind of lose themselves, not go outside into the real world, not have actual relationships. And then where does that lead us? And
people would say, it will just mean that, more young lads, are describing themselves as being asexual. I would actually argue the opposite. I think, you could get into a situation where they have been complimented the entire time and they're delusional in terms of what they are able to offer because this bot's telling them how brilliant they are. And then they sort of go into the real world and they try and have a conversation with a woman.
Yeah, I mean, having filmed with many incels in my time, like there's very little goodness, I think, that comes from being kind of in your room on your computer like 90% of the time, not engaging in those conversations,
not
with
being
women,
challenged,
and not being challenged
in any way,
views,
shape or form.
And that's what I mean, that sense around like talking to this thing that tells you that you're right all the time, that does everything you ask, just does not end up in a good place.
I suppose what rounds this up quite nicely is at the start I was saying, former Prime Minister Boris Johnson was saying, oh, it's brilliant, it's amazing, it's magnificent, sort of singing its praises. He also said, actually, it often says that the questions that I ask it are like really brilliant questions and like I'm so smart for asking that question.
Yeah, it says, oh, your questions are clever, you're brilliant, you're excellent, you have such insights. Boris Johnson likes people who like him. Wow,
do you know, that's really surprising, actually.
But it is funny saying that because like I noticed this recently with my ChatGPT, like every single thing I said, it would go exactly, like even on the way here, I was having like a little chat. 'Cause this is the thing, like you can literally, I was having a chat with it about the topics of the podcast.
Stop.
And so I put it on like a little ChatGPT phone mode, and then I was like, hey, tell me about like, this thing. And everything I'd say, it'd go, you're spot on. Exactly, Ben. Oh, you got that totally right. And I'm like, and then it completely like answered in a different way. And I'm like, but I didn't get that right. It's like,
you just had your ego stroke for 2.5 hours.
Which is a kind of damning indictment on human beings, is that's what we look for in our relationships, en masse. But yeah, I'm not necessarily surprised.
I've never used it. I wouldn't know how to use it.
You should probably use it.
The only way
and you're not worried you're just going to be left behind without
leave me behind. Please leave me behind. Absolutely, I'm happy to be left behind.
But it is pretty important, I think, in the new age. Will you let your daughter use it? Like,
she's going to be locked in a cupboard on an isolated house on a mountain.
Yeah,
she's not having. There's
no internet,
any interaction with the outside world.
All right, so for our final story of the day. This one comes from the world of sports. I am a football fan. Do you like football?
I am a football fan.
You're a Liverpool fan, aren't you?
I am a soccer fan. Yes.
Exactly. So this does involve a Premier League team. So this has been kind of across the news over the past week, and it's an interesting meeting point between sports and politics, which often collide. So this is all about that the kind of Maccabi Tel Aviv, which is a football team in Israel that's in the Europa League.
Yep.
They are set to play Aston Villa, Brummy team
next month
in the Premier League next month. And there's been a lot of hoo-ha because basically the kind of West Midlands police, in conjunction with the kind of an advisory council, the safety advisory group,
board,
in Birmingham, have decided that the fans of Maccabi Tel Aviv should not be allowed to attend the game on the 6th of November due to safety concerns, which in amidst something that's already mega controversial, which is obviously the kind of situation in Israel and Gaza at the moment. This is a story that's come off the back of that. And there's kind of two ways that it's kind of being framed. One is from a purely safety perspective. So there's been incidents before involving Maccabi, and so in November 2024.
That was in Amsterdam.
Yeah, that was in Amsterdam. It was a match against Ajax, and there was kind of violent clashes and hate crime offences that happened there. So the police are nervous about that.
So there were accounts of, am I right in thinking, there was footage showing some of the fans removing Palestinian flags and Arabic slurs.
Yeah. So I think this is the thing, is it's so heated because, football in general is wild, kind of known to have an element of hooliganism within their ranks. But as well as that, it's obviously set amongst the backdrop of a conflict that is extremely controversial, and many people call what Israel have done in Gaza genocide, including a UN commission, which in September 2025 categorically said that they've committed genocide in the Gaza Strip. So I guess the question is, should these fans be being grouped into that? The conversation was made slightly kind of easier, I guess, that this weekend the actual derby in Tel Aviv between...
Wasn't it cancelled before they kicked off?
It was literally cancelled, yeah, due to violence in Tel Aviv itself. But I guess, should sport and politics be so intertwined? Like, should you ban fans because of the actions of their government?
I think what's interesting is that all of our leaders, so Keir Starmer came out, didn't he, and said that he felt like it was the wrong decision.
Yeah, same as Kemi Badenoch.
The same as Kemi
Conservative
Badenoch.
Party leader.
I think Lisa Nandy, the culture secretary, she said that she was trying to find a way to kind of overturn, the kind of decision that they had reached, the advisory board and, West Midlands Police. I mean, I was in Birmingham last week, actually, just coincidentally,
while a lot of this was happening,
while this was all playing out. And it was interesting. I sort of heard this lad, he was a Jewish lad, and he was a student in Birmingham, and he was saying it was his belief, from his point of view, he felt like it was anti-Semitic, and he felt like, this is a slippery slope and this is how it starts. And, there's areas that people from his community, they're told they can't congregate, and then, they're given reasons he didn't accept. And then there was another guy on the other side of the opposing argument basically saying, look, we have these advisory boards for a reason, and we'd be daft to, ignore their concerns. I mean, there was an MP from Liverpool, Paula Barker, and she's basically come out and said, look, I think it's a slippery slope ignoring safety concerns. That's the very reason that these kinds of boards exist. And she references, the Hillsborough disaster, 97 innocent, completely innocent people lost their lives. And she goes, I believe it's unprecedented for a government to try and overturn such advice.
Yeah, it's a really tricky one. I think, there's been a lot of updates over the last few days. The culture secretary pledged that the government will find the resources to allow Maccabi Tel Aviv football fans to attend the match in Birmingham.
But haven't they said, do you know what, don't bother, we don't want to go, we won't be accepting them?
So that seems a little bit too little too late. So the kind of Maccabi announced that they're actually going to just refuse to sell tickets. And I can see kind of both sides of the argument. If I was a Maccabi Tel Aviv fan, which I'm not, you'd feel like you're being targeted because of something that doesn't have anything to do with you necessarily. On the flip side, there are a lot of people who strongly disagree with the actions of kind of Israel and want to protest that. And this is a kind of meeting point between an Israeli team in the in the Europa League, in which there's an opportunity to do that. You should have a right to protest. So it's a really, really difficult one, I guess, as an example of how this has become like a kind of major culture war point. Like, everyone then jumps onto it. So like now, Stephen Yaxley Lennon, otherwise known as Tommy Robinson, he's in Israel at the moment, and the Israeli government does this thing where they kind of invite,
they invited him over.
Yeah, they've done this quite a few times, where they kind of invite right-wing influencers who make content kind of favorable to the Israeli cause. So he's there at the moment. I saw a couple of his YouTube videos yesterday where he's speaking to people on the ground, and what's
he asking them?
He's trying, like, his last video was like trying to show that people feel less safe in London than they do or kind of like Jewish Israelis feel less safe in London than they do in Israel, which is a war-torn country.
Okay.
Which it's not actually that surprising, but yeah, so he kind of did a post of him kind of wearing a Maccabi Tel Aviv top, basically saying, who's coming to support Maccabi Tel Aviv at Villa Park? So it's like that sense around, okay, let's rally yet another conflict. Let's add a bit more fire to this unnecessarily. But it does show you that it's going to get messy, probably. Yep. And this is the problem. This is what if you're in this safety advisory group and you're looking at the match and thinking, how do we kind of protect the population?
Also, there's kids there. Do you know what I mean? Like, there'll be dads that are taking their little girls or their lads or whatever. Like, it's supposed to be a safe family space. And that there's not a world, there is not a universe where I would feel comfy taking my family to a match that feels like there's such tension and, you know, emotions are so heightened, and now everybody's sort of adding their 5 cents to
and that's
the convo.
That's the flip side of the kind of the politics argument, which is, you know, okay, football shouldn't be political, so fans shouldn't be banned.
But it always has been. Historically,
Exactly.
It always has been.
But you can't escape it. So at the same time, football shouldn't be political to the point that a match becomes an absolute powder keg for political tension, where anything can happen and anything can go out of control. So, yeah, very
watch
tricky
this
one.
space. It'll be interesting to see what
I mean,
happens.
it's happening in 2 weeks.
That's right.
So a lot can happen in that time.
Yep. Ben, that's us. We've got to sign off now. That's all we've got time for today. If you want to keep up to date with everything to do with this show, you can follow Channel 4 Documentaries on Insta and TikTok, and you can subscribe to Channel 4 Documentaries on YouTube.
And you can watch the full episodes on the Channel 4 Documentaries YouTube page, as well as watch and listen on Spotify, because we're a vodcast. The episodes drop every Wednesday at 6 a.m.
6 a.m, early birds. If you want to get in touch with us about the show, you can email us on untangled@zand.land.
So we'll be back next week to untangle more stories and headlines. In the meantime, have a great week.
Ciao for now.